Tara had been staring at the back of the camping stove for 4 minutes like it had personally offended her. "Okay," she said. "I think the instructions are wrong." "The instructions are from the manufacturer." "Then the manufacturer is wrong." I was sitting on the tailgate of my truck with a bag of chips open between us, watching her rotate the little fuel canister like she was diffusing something. The campsite around us was dark except for the string of battery lights she had clipped to the tent poles with the calm confidence of someone who had camped exactly twice in her life and considered herself experienced. "It says twist until it clicks," I said. I twisted. It did not click. "Did you twist the right direction?" Tara looked at me over her shoulder. "There are 2 directions, Flynn. That's all of them." Flynn was my name. She had been saying it like that for years. Not mean. Just like she wanted to make sure I heard her. Like the word itself had a point to it. We were at Shenandoah, a place she had been saying she wanted to go for 3 years without ever going, until last March when her lease ran out and she had 3 weeks between apartments, and I suggested a weekend trip like it was nothing. Like I always did. She had said yes before I finished the sentence, then spent 2 weeks sending me articles about trail ratings and bear safety and the best time to see the Milky Way, until I knew more about Shenandoah from her texts than I had learned in 30 years of living in Virginia. That was Tara. She treated information like a hobby. She would send me a link about the history of something I mentioned once, 3 days after I mentioned it, with a note that said, "Thought you'd find this interesting," like she had been thinking about it the whole time. I always found it interesting. That was probably part of the problem. "Hand me the instructions," she said. I handed them over. She read for 10 seconds, rotated the canister, and it clicked. "See," she said. "I literally just told you to twist it. You said the right direction. You didn't say clockwise." She set the stove on the flat rock we had cleared and lit the burner with 1 click. The blue flame caught and she smiled at it like she had built fire from scratch. Dinner. We were making instant noodles because that had been her idea, and I had agreed even though I had packed the actual food in the cooler behind us. She had texted me a week before the trip asking if I thought instant noodles at a campsite would be the most nostalgic dinner of all time, and I had said sure, because she asked with that particular kind of energy where she had already decided yes, but still wanted someone to agree with her. I had learned to recognize that in about year 2. We had known each other for 5 years. It started because of a parking garage. I had locked my keys in my car in the garage under the office building where we both worked. She was on the 4th floor doing something with data I never fully understood. I was on the 2nd doing something with project logistics she said she didn't care about, but always asked questions about anyway. I was standing by my car with my phone in my hand, debating whether to call a locksmith or my brother, when she appeared from between 2 SUVs with a slim Jim she had borrowed from the parking attendant. "I saw you go past my car twice," she said. "You had the look." "What look?" "The look of someone making bad decisions quietly." She got my door open in 40 seconds. I asked how she knew how to do that. She said she grew up in a house with an unreliable deadbolt and a father who locked himself out every other week. I told her that was either very concerning or very useful. She said usually both. We got coffee that afternoon, then lunch the next week. Then she started showing up at my car 2 or 3 times a week for no reason at all, just to stand there and talk while we were both supposed to be leaving. Our parking garage became a thing. We were aware that was strange and did not discuss it. People assumed things early. Our mutual friend Deb at the office gave me a look the first time I mentioned Tara's name that I chose to ignore and kept ignoring for 4.5 more years. Tara's sister visited once and introduced herself by saying, "So you're the one I always hear about." Tara had changed the subject very fast. I had filed it away somewhere and kept it there. At the campsite, the noodles came out fine. We ate them in folding chairs, facing the tree line, and the sky above us was starting to do what she had told me it would do, open up, layer by layer, until it looked less like sky and more like something you weren't supposed to see. "There," Tara said, and pointed up. I looked. She was right. She was usually right about things she had researched, which was most things. "You've been looking forward to this specific part," I said. "I've been looking forward to this specific part since I was 19. She leaned back in her chair. "My dad used to talk about seeing real dark sky. We just never went anywhere that had it. Every place we planned, something happened." "Like what?" money, then my mom's thing, then just life got smaller for a while. She said it simply, the way she always said the hard things, without making a big ceremony of them. That was a Tara thing. She could drop something real into a sentence and move past it before you had time to react. Like she didn't want to make you uncomfortable, but also didn't want to pretend it wasn't there. Her mom had died 4 years ago. I had known Tara for 1 year when it happened. I remember standing outside her apartment building at 10 p.m. because she had called and I came. I don't think she expected me to actually come. She opened the door and looked at me for a second with this expression like she was recalculating something. And then we sat on her kitchen floor and she talked for 3 hours. I barely said anything. I didn't think she needed me to. I had stayed too late that night. Then too late again the next Friday. Then it just became what we did. Does it look like he described? I asked. She didn't answer right away. She was looking up, neck back, both hands loose in her lap. Yeah, she said. Actually, yeah. There are moments you notice in real time while they're happening, and this was one of them. The fire going low in the pit between us. The tree line, a solid black edge against the sky. Her face turned up towards something her dad had promised her, and her being there to see it. I noticed all of it and then looked away because I'd been doing that for 5 years and I was good at it. Later, when we had let the fire die down to coals, she pulled her knees up to her chest, inside her hoodie, and said, "Can I ask you something weird? Most of your questions are weird." True. She was quiet for a second. Do you ever get tired of it? Of what? Of this. She gestured vaguely at the air between us, at nothing specific, at everything. Of being the person who shows up. I looked at her. What do you mean? I mean, you came that night when my mom died. You drove 3 hours when I had that thing with my landlord last winter. You found my brother's stupid birthday present when I had been looking for it for 2 weeks. You show up, like, consistently. She said consistently, like it was a slightly strange observation, like she had been turning it over. I just wonder if you ever get tired of it. No, I said. That's it? Just no. Just no. She looked at me sideways. That's not an answer. Yes, it is. It's the shortest possible answer. Tara, I shifted in my chair. I don't show up because I'm supposed to. I show up because I want to know how it goes. Every time, I want to know how it turns out. She was quiet. The coals popped once. That's a nice way to say it, she said. It's not a nice way, it's just true. She looked down at her hands around her mug, then out at the dark trees. Something had shifted slightly in the space between us, and I didn't do anything about it. I was very practiced at not doing anything about it. My sister asked about you, she said finally. She asks about me every time. She asked if we had figured it out yet. She said figured it out in air quotes. I couldn't see but could hear. What did you say? I said I didn't know what she was talking about. Pause. She laughed for a long time. Write in the comments, had you ever had someone in your life who you kept calling just a friend because the other word felt too dangerous to say out loud? I stood up to put more wood on the fire even though the fire didn't need wood, because I needed something to do with my hands. I took 2 pieces from the pile we had stacked against the tree. I set them down carefully on the coals. The fire picked up again. Flynn. I looked up. Sit down, Tara said. I wasn't done. I sat down. She was looking at the fire now instead of at me, which felt strategic. Tara was not usually strategic, which meant this was something she had thought about. I think I've been doing something unfair, she said. To who? To you. Her jaw tightened slightly, the way it did when she was being careful. I let you be the person who shows up, and I never asked you whether that was what you wanted. I just assumed it was friendly. I filed it under friendship and told myself that was the honest answer. Tara. I'm saying I wasn't being honest. She looked at me finally. Not with you and not with myself. And I think you knew that. I think you've been waiting a long time for me to stop pretending I didn't know what this was. The fire cracked. Somewhere past the tree line, something moved in the leaves and went quiet. I looked at her and thought about the parking garage and her kitchen floor at 2 a.m. and the 3-hour drive I made in January without telling her how fast I left, and every conversation I had started about someone I was seeing that I ended before it became anything. because none of it ever felt like the right direction to move in. You want to know what's funny? I said. I've been trying to figure out if you knew for about 4 years. The corner of her mouth moved. I knew. Yeah? I'm sorry it took me this long. Tara, you were dealing with. I know what I was dealing with. She said it gently, not a cut. I'm still sorry. You have been so patient with me, and I know you never asked to be. She looked at the fire. I think I was afraid that if I said it out loud, it would become a thing that could break, and you were the one person I couldn't afford to break. I let that sit for a second. I had heard almost the same words come out of my own mouth, in my own head, every time I had talked myself out of saying anything. The fear had 2 sides, and we had both been standing on them, facing opposite directions, for 5 years. I want to ask you something, I said, and I need you to answer like the version of you who stops pretending. She turned toward me. Okay. When I showed up that night, after your mom, when you opened the door and I was standing there, what did you think? She was quiet for a long moment. I thought, she said slowly, that you were the only person in the world I wanted to see, and then I thought that was a problem. Why a problem? Because I had been telling myself for a year that it wasn't like that, and then you were just there. And everything I had been telling myself stopped making sense. I had been at her door with terrible timing and a 6-pack and no plan. I had just driven because going to sleep and waiting to see if she called back felt impossible. I drove fast, I admitted. I'm not going to tell you how fast. Tara laughed once, soft and sudden. Flynn. I was worried. You broke the speed limit for me. I didn't say that. You implied it. I implied I cared about your general well-being. She was smiling down at the fire now, the kind of smile she got when she was trying to keep it smaller than it wanted to be. I knew that smile. I had been cataloging that smile for 5 years without meaning to. I found something last year, she said, in my apartment, behind the couch, which I know says a lot about how often I move my couch. She reached into the front pocket of her hoodie and came out with a folded piece of paper, worn at the creases like it had been folded and unfolded more than once. I wrote this about a year after my mom died. I was doing that thing where you write stuff down to deal with it. She held it out. I took it. In her handwriting, slanted right the way it always was, it said, Things I know for sure right now. 1. The chai place on Broad is better than I've been admitting. 2. I need to call my sister more. 3. Flynn would drive across the state in the middle of the night if I needed him to. 4. I don't know what to do with number 3. I looked at it for a while. You kept this. I didn't throw it away, she said, which was different, but I let it go. Tara, I handed it back. What do you want to do with number 3? She took the paper, folded it once, put it back in her pocket. I want to stop treating it like information I don't know what to do with, she said. I want it to mean what it means. She looked at me, and for the first time that night, maybe for the first time in a long time, she didn't look away. I'm a little terrified. I want you to know that. I'm a little terrified too. You don't look it. I've been practicing looking normal around you for 5 years. I'm very good at it. She stared at me. Then something gave way in her expression, not dramatically, more like a window that had been stuck for too long finally moving. I have so many questions about that. We have all weekend. We have all weekend, she repeated, like she was testing how it sounded. Then she set her mug down in the grass, leaned across the arm of the camp chair, and kissed me. It was short, like a period at the end of a sentence she had been building for a long time. She pulled back and looked at me, checking. Okay, she said. You're asking me? I'm asking you. Tara, I broke the speed limit for you. She laughed, a real one, the kind that bent her forward, the kind I had heard 1,000 times and always stored somewhere I didn't name. That is not confirmation. Yes, it is. I leaned toward her and she met me halfway, because that was what she did. She didn't wait for things to come to her. She moved toward them when she was ready, and she was ready now. The fire was going warm and low between us, and above us, the sky was exactly what her father had promised, and somewhere in the dark, the trees were just trees. We stayed out there too long. We always did. The next morning, she woke up first, which she always did, and by the time I unzipped the tent, she had the stove going without asking for the instructions. "Clockwise," I said. She handed me a cup of coffee. "You're going to be like that, aren't you?" "For the foreseeable future, yes." She looked at me over her own cup, with the early light coming through the trees behind her, and the expression on her face was one I had seen before technically. It just meant something different now, not a different feeling from her, just a different name for the one that had been there all along. "I texted my sister," she said. "What did you say?" She smiled into her cup. "I said we figured it out." I thought about everything that phrase contained: the parking garage, the kitchen floor, the 3-hour drive, the paper behind the couch, 5 years of arriving when it mattered and never asking for more than she had, all of it folding into a morning with bad camp coffee and a stove she had learned to work on her second try. "Did she respond?" I asked. Tara pulled out her phone and turned the screen toward me. Her sister had sent back one word: "Finally." I think about the piece of paper Tara kept behind her couch a lot. Not because it was romantic. It wasn't really. It was a torn sheet from a legal pad with a numbered list written in pen. The kind of thing you write at 1 a.m. when you're trying to make sense of a year that broke you open. And somewhere on that list, between a note about chai and a reminder to call her sister, she had written my name. Not because I had done anything extraordinary, just because I had shown up. And she didn't know what to do with that yet. I've been thinking about what it actually takes to get from that moment, her writing my name on a list she folded and kept, to that campsite 5 years later where she finally said the thing she'd been carrying. And I don't think it was luck. I don't think it was timing. I think it was 3 things, working slowly the way most real things do. The first is integrity. Not the big dramatic kind, not the kind people put on resumes. The small daily kind, showing up when it's inconvenient, keeping your word when nobody's checking, being the same person at 10 p.m. in a parking garage as you are anywhere else. Tara didn't fall for a gesture. She fell for a pattern. 5 years of a pattern. The night I drove to her apartment, I didn't think about what it would look like or what it might mean. I just went. That's the only version of integrity that actually counts. The kind you do when there's nothing in it for you yet. The second is paying attention, not surveillance, not obsession, just genuine curiosity about another person. Tara sent me links to things I mentioned once. I remembered how she said the hard things quietly, without ceremony. We were both watching each other, carefully, for years. And that attention was its own kind of intelligence. The kind that tells you someone is worth being afraid for, worth protecting, worth waiting on while they figure out what they're ready to say. You can't buy that kind of understanding. You build it. Slowly, one conversation at a time, by caring enough to actually listen. The third is patience. Real patience, not the passive kind where you wait and hope and do nothing. The active kind, the kind where you keep showing up anyway. Keep being present. Keep choosing the friendship even when the friendship isn't everything you want it to be. That takes something. It takes deciding that the person matters more than the outcome you're hoping for. I didn't always do that gracefully. There were dates I ended early in my head before the check came. There were moments I looked away when I should have said something, but I kept coming back, and so did she. What I know now, sitting on the other side of it, is that none of those 3 things are passive. They're choices you make over and over, usually quietly, usually without any guarantee that it's going somewhere. Tara's paper behind the couch wasn't a clue I planted. It was just what happened when someone watched me long enough to see that I meant it. We didn't get here because the universe pushed us together. We got here because we were both, in our own slow and imperfect ways, trying to be worth it. That's the part nobody tells you. You don't find the right person. You become someone who can hold on to them.